This is a 2013 Camaro. I think when this car was introduced, it saved what we would call the pony cars. It was, in my humble opinion, a revolution and really showed what pony cars could become, breaking some of the bounds, some of the boundaries of the old way of thinking about them. Today, I've got a chance to take a look at it around the outside, the inside, get it on the road, and tell you why I think this really saved an entire genre of cars. Oh, it's worth mentioning, it's a 6-cylinder, it's an automatic, and I actually think that's an advantage. All right, so welcome back to All Cars, everybody. I'm John, and every time I look at a used car, I ask myself two questions, right? Would I recommend it to others? And would I be proud to have one in my driveway? And so I'm going to answer both of those questions here at the end. But first, we're going to have a chance to take a look around this car, get it on the road, tell you my opinion of it. And I love this car. I'm going to be really nitpicky about a few things. You're going to hear me complain about this car a lot, but at the end of it, you'll realize I really love this car. Pony cars have been around since the 60s. Really, the Mustang introduced it to us, the idea of a regular sedan, put a big engine in it, make it two doors, really form over function in a lot of ways. And I like that this doesn't have a V8 or more powerful engines. It's supercharged out of its mind. I like the fact that this has a V6 in it because I think you really get the essence of what the car is about with basic engines in it. In fact, I've bought cars purposefully upgraded with a basic engine in it because I like the idea. And this is a pretty good engine to begin with, but the styling is really what does it for me. At the front end, very famously, they played homage to some of the older Camaros of past generations with the headlights and the overall styling, the overall proportions of it. And they did it right. This was really part of the kind of the retro movement that brought us the new Mini and the Volkswagen Beetle and that horrible Ford Thunderbird. This kind of came along too in that retro theme, but Chevy did it right. They produced a car that is just absolutely gorgeous and so well proportioned. And I love it for that. You know, down the side here, you know, proud Camaro here, just a little bit of character right here, the way the metal is actually bent with this line that carries up back, the fins, or excuse me, the gills back here. And it comes back to, honestly, what I think is one of the sexiest haunches in, well, at least in pony car world. Let's put it that way. Just a beautiful quarter panel back here. And then at the rear, part of what I don't like is the lights are cut off back here. The chrome around them. I don't like lights. You see this on some old Rover cars. You see it on some other vehicles where they've got a styling and they just kind of cut it off with part of the bodywork. I don't like that. I really don't like that. And they did it here. But overall, it is a great looking car with beautiful proportions. Now, because it is a pony car and because form is over function, you end up with a lot of compromises. That's the word I'm looking for. For example, this beautiful quarter panel back here leads to an opening that's unbelievably small. Now, once you get the trunk open, it's actually relatively good size. It's not quite Honda Accord, Toyota Camry size, but it's a relatively good size. The problem is they've given you a mail slot to actually put anything in it. It's not very wide front to back here. I mean, that looks like a 15 inches maybe, something like that. It's not very wide at all. So this styling choice has led to a super small opening with, look at this liftover. You know, where modern cars cut down like this is way up here. I mean, this is early 80s you know, American design here. I'm sure that somebody at Chevy will tell you that this is part of the rigidity of the car. That's why this is cut so high, but I don't buy it. I absolutely don't. But it's a pretty good opening. It's a pretty good trunk. Once you get into it, the opening, it's just ruined for the car for me. Now, once you get inside the car, it's pretty easy to get in. This is a little low, admittedly. I could move the seat down a little bit, but, you know, you've got a big, huge trunk release right here. You've got all your controls for windows and door locks right here, really obvious. The release for the door itself is not. You'd think it would be up here more, it's down here, but it's really easy to activate with your finger. Little tiny pocket right there, little speaker right here, and then everything else inside is, well, it's kind of standard GM stuff. And that's part of the advantage of these cars, is because they're made by big manufacturers, they're gonna pull parts right off the bin. So this is a really nice looking steering wheel, but pretty standard General Motors stuff. I love the bin. Sure, the plastic is nice and hard. Not a lot of soft touch around here, but a little bit of style, just a little bit with this little eyebrow right here. Thankfully, they didn't carry the round vents to the center here, but then even this decision, this is the left-right controller. Why is it just not in the middle? It's some weird decisions like that that I don't love. You know, visibility is pretty good, at least forward, but once you try to look back that way, it becomes absolutely nothing at all, with a little mail slot for a rear window. Now, continuing up front, again, you do have map pocket there, a little bit of storage, you can throw stuff there, and here in the center, a couple of cup holders. This is not my car, I'll point this out. You know, pretty big bin right there. Automatic, you know, leather covered. It feels pretty good. Button at the front. Pretty simple right here. A little stylish. I mean, it's all just cheap plastic, but it's pretty stylish. But even when you put it in gear, can you hear that? It creaks when you shift. I mean, that's how you know this is a GM product built to a price point. They've got this fake stitching with a little bit of soft touch right there. But it's a cheap interior. It really is, but at least it's styled, and they didn't over-style it. I hate this right here. This should be on the driver's side, but it's not. And then the Chevy infotainment system in 2013, really basic, nothing special at all. So it seemed to attract people who have aftermarket exhaust on their cars. Let me shut this door. So once you get in, I mean, look, pretty good leg room right here, enough to get your hand down there to the power seat. You know, I've got just about enough room, if you can see that, over my head to put my hand. So it's actually pretty roomy. It's just this right here, super, super low, big, thick A-pillar right here. This is low and this is high. So you end up looking through a gun slot is what it feels like. But back to the infotainment, you know, you can make a phone call, control your audio, change your source. If you hit the config button, you can actually, you know, pair a different phone. I have not paired mine with this. There's a little button to turn it on, volume, back. It is a touch screen. It is not incredibly responsive, but it gets the job done. And you've got to remember, this is a 7 or 8 year old car now. So this is a little bit of the elementary school of infotainment. It does its job. That's all you can say about it. And of course, because it's Chevy and America is a litigious society, when you put it in reverse, yep, you get a beep every time to let you know, be aware of your surroundings. However, it does have, let's see if I can get it to do it. Yeah, they're right there. They'll give you a big, huge, see how not responsive it is, a giant warning sign to let you know you're about to back into something. So whereas other automakers now will give you the 2 lines and give you some idea how far away is, this one just yells at you. But that's enough about the interior. It's really comfortable. The seats are comfortable, but let's get this thing on the road. All right, getting the 2013 Camaro on the road, and I've got to make an allowance for the exhaust on this thing. It's not stock. Once you get cruising, it kind of dies down, but I don't know if you can hear it through the microphone really or not. So, you know, part of what I was saying was the advantage and disadvantage of being built by a global manufacturer like General Motors in the Chevy division here is you end up with a lot of standardized stuff, and some of it's good, some of it's not so good. The gauges are kind of small, on the small side, and that red needle, I don't see it very well. Like, I can't really tell how much gas this car has in it. I think it's got some, but it throws a shadow because the sun's behind me now. So I guess we're okay. The same thing down here with the controls for the AC, the HVAC. They're tiny, but I guess once you get in the car and you know what you're doing, you know what to press, right? You know what is the rear defogger, for example, or you know where the air conditioning button is and the recirculate button and all this other stuff. That all kind of fades away after you own the car, so I don't want to hype on it too much. And honestly, the controls, like for the fan, are big and chunky. It's not an automatic AC system in here, but it works, and it creaks a little bit, the interior. It's what I would expect from GM, to be honest with you. The view out is a little bit like being on the German side at the invasion of Normandy, where you're looking out a slit. It's not as terrible as you would think, but it is really, really tight. Again, form over function. But I can pick on all this stuff, and I will. But I really love this car. There's some things that drive me up the wall, like this is so high, right? I have to lean up to get to it. But if I was taller to make this height make more sense, I'd be too close to the roof here. This is already like right here at my forehead level. It never feels claustrophobic. And part of that is because they have added in some of this gray or silver around the interior to lighten things up just a little bit, and the seats aren't all black, so it feels a little more open in here than you would think. But the fact is that I do love this car because when GM canceled the Camaro, I'm sure there are fans out there, but I was not one of the people who cried about it. The last generations of Camaro were poor. They were poorly built. They were heavy, old suspension tech, and even some of the engines for a long time there, you suffered through engines that just weren't very strong, and sometimes weren't very reliable either. And the same thing with the Trans Ams. They were just miserable, fat, heavy cars. And I kind of thought the pony car was going to die because the Mustang was still based on an ancient platform with a live axle. Now, we know that the next generation that came after this of Mustang, they reinvigorated it as well, and it has become arguably the best of the pony cars. I won't wade into the Ford-Chevy debate there, but of course Dodge came back with the Challenger. And so you ended up with finally a vibrant pony car again, but this car really led the way. They took the Camaro off the market, they brought it back with this, and in a lot of ways they reinvented it with a modern, dang it, thanks for the signal there, with a modern suspension, with modern engines, modern technology, and again, hearkened back to the past without being a slave to it. Most of what I've complained about in here would be the complaint for any car built to serve this need, whether it's that Challenger or whether it's the Mustang. And I don't want to be too hard on this car because of it. It actually rides pretty well when you consider that it's meant to have a more sporty muscle car approach. It does crash over bumps. You never feel like you dance with this car. It's got a relatively heavy steering, but you can feel the road, you can feel some vibration through it. The steering wheel is unusually slick for some reason, but it's a pretty good size, diameter, a pretty good thickness, something you can really grab into. The seats are surprisingly comfortable. The owner of this car has driven this back and forth across the country, I think twice this year, okay? And he loves it as a long distance tourer. The suspension is, well, it crashes over bumps just a little bit. It's more compliant than you would think, but again, it never feels like you're dancing. And I don't think that's the point of these cars. Sure, I'd like more power, but isn't that the argument that every person who likes a muscle car would argue, is that there always needs to be more power? But like I said earlier, I like the base engines in cars. I like a base engine showing what the car can do without more and more and more power and more weight, kind of masking some things. And I think this car handles well. For a V6, it's got, when it was new, I think it has about 316 horsepower. And you know what? This thing will scat. This thing really will get up and go. It's not a V8, I get that, but it's got some pep to it. So, you know, if you're somebody who has a, let's say, a Honda Accord budget and want something a little bit sportier, then a V6 one of these would be a great choice because, well, it's good. It's just good. So again, it's absorbing. I'm on a slightly bumpy road here. Sure, I'm being tossed more than I was in some of my other reviews, but there's no real noise here. Yeah, there's no noise coming through the suspension. There's no banging and clang. That was a little thump thump as the tires went over it. It's the chassis is not uncomfortable, but there's just a tiny bit of liveliness to it. Like it wants to play. But this isn't a kitty cat wants to play. This is more like you've got a lab. It's got big feet and it wants to come out and wrestle with you a little bit. That's what this car kind of feels like. And I like it as a V6. And I don't know what kind of gas mileage the guy gets on it. I don't know what kind of, you know, I don't even know what kind of mileage it has on it. I need to look at that. But it just is a wonderful car. And even if you don't like pony cars, even if you're like, these are ridiculous, these are a throwback to 60 years ago when the Mustang came out. Once you're settled in here, you got the wind in your face, you know, you got the steering wheel in your hands, and you see that hood stretched out in front of you like, well, like the bow of a boat, honestly. You get it. And this, I think, is a great example of it. I love this car, and the generations that came afterwards are even better. The Mustang became better. The Challenger got more power, and I love this car. It's a great car, and it's a hoot. But we still have to answer those questions, don't we? So I'm going to answer them different. This is going to be a different one for me. Question number one, would I recommend this car to other people? Absolutely. If you're looking at a pony car, absolutely look at the Camaro. I am more of a Mustang fan myself. I think that the compromises that come with this kind of car, inherently, I think, the Mustang gets them better more often, get them more right more often. So if you're in the market for a pony car, absolutely look at one of these. I think it's a wonderful car, and if you're looking for that sportiness, that sense of a muscle car, you know, I think this is a great option. And I do think that if you look at the Ford, you're going to be, well, am I more Ford or my Chevy? The compromises that they make, which one appeals to you more? But then the second question is, would I be proud to have one of these in my driveway? The answer is going to be no. And it's going to be no because I just don't want a car like this at all. This is not wading into the Chevy, Ford, Mopar argument. This is not a knock on this car because, again, I think bringing it back on this platform and everything that GM did, I think Chevy really hit a home run with this car. Don't misunderstand me. But no, I wouldn't buy this. I would buy something older that was more classic, or I would want something newer, or yes, with a bigger engine under the hood. But honestly, for me, if I was looking for something that was sporty, a two-door with essentially a back seat that's not usable is not what I would choose. I would go for more, I don't know, a Dodge Charger. I'd rather have a Dodge Charger, a Maxima. I mean, I would rather an Infiniti, right? G Series. I would rather have something like that than this that is a little more purposeful. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not a muscle car guy. I enjoy them. When I get behind the wheel, I feel that call, right? I get why people love these. But I guess I just have to admit that when it comes down to putting your money on it, no, this isn't me. There's better options with less compromises that can give you driving enjoyment along the way. It's a great car. If you're in the market, you ought to check one out. But for me, I'd rather put my money into something else with a little more practicality to it. So I appreciate you being here, guys. Please consider subscribing. Please give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. And let me know what you think below. I'm excited to hear about your thoughts on this one. Thanks.